So Business Days at the Capitol was established as a means for business leaders to be looped in on public policy, any issue that impacted business, and to show appreciation for all of our elected officials that are tasked with decision making. The Secretary of State is one of 6 executive branch officers originally designated by the Montana Constitution in 1889. Among the duties and functions of the Secretary of State are overseeing elections, maintaining official records of the executive branch and acts of the legislature, and maintaining public interest records of businesses and nonprofits. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our special guest, Secretary of State, Christy Jacobson. Thank you. All right, I'm going to grab this.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Christy Jacobson, Secretary of State for the greatest state in the country. Woo, absolutely. I want to thank Montana Chamber of Commerce President Todd O'Hare and his team. Where's Todd? Is he in the room? You're awesome, Todd. Well done. Thank you for everything you're doing for our state, especially Stacy Dorrington as well. She planned an amazing event. Stacy, where are you? She's not in the room, but she did a great job. The local chambers across Montana, the sponsors of this event, and all the members and businesses across Montana, thank you for doing business in Montana. It's an honor to be here and to briefly speak with you about how the Secretary of State's office is making it easier to do business in Montana. Business is thriving in our state, thanks to the leadership of our governor, legislature, and congressmen. I look forward to the years ahead of Montana leading in the country in a pro-business climate. I'd like to share some data with you that is newly featured on the Secretary of State website as the Montana Business Report. A key indicator of the economic strength in Montana is continued growth of new businesses. In 2021, over 51,000 new businesses registered with the Secretary of State. 51,000. Compared to 39,000 from the previous year. Month-by-month comparisons continue to show the strength of our economy by the increasing numbers of new businesses. Additional information that may be useful to your business includes the types of new businesses created and where they are created by zip code. One of the most exciting moments of 2021 was when Montana was rated the #1 state to start a small business, thanks to the hard work from all of you. The Secretary of State's office is here to assist you. Registering and securing your business name is a very important first step in the journey of your business. If you don't secure your name, someone else will have the opportunity to do so. Maintaining accurate records is also another essential element the Secretary of State's office provides. If you ever misplace any of your business documents or simply need copies, we're here to provide them to you. Customer service is our #1 priority, and we are here to help in any way. Please make sure to grab one of our brochures, which contains contact information like links, resources, and check out our website at sosmt.gov. We are also proud to introduce the Montana Business Spotlight, a new series aimed at recognizing and highlighting the small businesses across the Treasure State. The Montana Business Spotlight introduces the faces, families, and stories behind our great small businesses. These businesses, your businesses, begin their journey with our office, and getting an opportunity to share that journey, introducing Montanans to those businesses, is an honor. The pandemic may have generated a lot of angst and frustration, but it also motivated people to rethink what we were doing and how we are doing it. And in true American spirit, many Montanans found creative ways to make some proverbial lemonade. Montana recently led the change for expansion of online notary services. In May, our office will be holding a 406 Notary Conference here in Helena, and if your business employs notaries or offers notary services, we encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity and learn how the new laws could benefit your business. The Secretary of State's office is your partner, offering 24/7 filing through our online portal. Don't forget, the 2022 annual reports are due Friday, April 15th. LLCs and corporations can file their annual report on our website. Thank you again for doing business in Montana and trusting us with your business services. Now, in time dubbed the Great Resignation, recruiting and retaining talent is more critical than ever. Microsoft, a company that employs over 180,000 people worldwide, is an industry leader in this area. Leading the charge is Corporate Vice President of Talent, Learning, and Insights, Montana native Joe Whittinghill. Please welcome Mr. Whittinghill and Ron Slinger, the president of Miles Community College, for a fireside chat.
Well, good morning. It is great to be back home. It's great to see all of you, and I want to thank the Chamber for inviting me to come speak. It was really an honor to be asked. I'm going to spend actually about 25 minutes giving some remarks, and then Ron and I are going to do a fireside chat with some Q&A and then open it up to all of you with some questions. So first of all, essentially the job that I have at the company is organizational transformation. I was in finance for 10 years doing mergers and acquisitions, and when Satya Nadella became CEO, they asked me to come over to do this job because we fundamentally had to do three things: change our business strategy, change our technology strategy, and change our culture. And so that was what I was tasked to do, and it's been a great ride, and I'll explain some of that to you as I go through my remarks here. But as I was getting ready to give this talk, I started thinking about being a summer boy, summer help up out in Nye, Montana. While all of my friends were at the drive-in movies, I was in a bunkhouse or moving irrigation dams. Not that I'm bitter. But I learned a lot of things when I was working on the ranch because I knew very, very little. And I learned how to ride a horse. I learned how to move cattle. I learned how to work on machinery. I learned how to irrigate and grow crops. But most importantly, I learned 4 points that I want to go over with you. First of all is to think and rethink. And as we get into the talk today, this new fourth industrial revolution is a time for all of us to rethink what we believe we know and our assumptions and think of new ways of doing things. And that was the advice I got on the ranch. They said, well, you're either going to get killed or you're going to be really smart and not get killed working up here because you're going to be by yourself a lot up in the mountains and around heavy machinery, so be careful. I was like, great advice. Number 2 is most work requires working well with people. There is a lot of individual work, but increasingly the nature of everything we are doing, whether it's in ag, whether it's in power, whether it's in technology, whether it's in government, requires people to effectively work together and work across boundaries. And as we all know now, a lot of this will be virtual. And so coming up with those skills to be able to do that. 3, always improve your skills and get better. I never did even attempt to be a good roper, but I did get really good at moving cattle on a horse. I learned how to move hay, how to run a baler, and all of that, and in constantly increasing your skills. And I'm going to talk about skilling here because I think it's going to be of interest to you. And then the last one is use your resources. Use your horse, use the machinery, use the tools. Don't just try to use brute force to get through things. Those lessons are as applicable today in my job as they were back then. So let me start to talk about how, the nature of the world is changing with this, what was coming anyways, this fourth industrial revolution because of technology. But obviously the pandemic just accelerated everything. And so I'll speak a little bit about how the employees who walked out of the building or walked out of our firms 2 years ago are not the same people coming back in, and their expectations have changed dramatically. And this is all global data. The other thing is I want to talk about is that you will see on, I don't have many slides, but I'm from Microsoft, so I can't help myself. We did a study, this is just with our own employees, and 73% they want flexibility, and I'm going to talk about flexibility next, to be a core part of work moving forward. And I think for all of you who are business and government leaders, this flexibility point is going to be key. But here's the stunning statistic, and it actually globalizes. Almost half of our employees are looking at changing their job or changing their career. And we'll talk a bit about millennials, and we'll talk a bit about Zs. But frankly, it's the X-Gens and the boomers that are having the most crisis right now about what am I going to do when I grow up. And so we're working through that because we really don't want half of our employees to switch jobs right now. So we're trying to look through that. So point number one is flexibility is key. Whether that flexibility is ways of working, ways of thinking, or getting through the pandemic, humans did a really good job of thinking about flexibility. And they did a study, the World Economic Forum. During the pandemic, they roughly state that there are 2 billion frontline workers working in the world. These are the people that kept the stores open, kept food growing. These are the people that did healthcare, first responders, all of those folks that had to not only figure out how to get work done, but figure out at home how to make all that work, because a lot of people suddenly had a school in their house, or were dealing with aging parents that they couldn't visit. And this idea of being flexible and providing flexible ways to work and get work done is really key. Secondly, what happened during the pandemic more than we thought it would, and it's going to continue on, is a melding of work and personal life. We refer to it as outside is now in. We didn't talk about personal life in the past. Now at work, everybody's talking about their personal life. And you're starting to see that people are talking about mental health at work. And they're talking about sometimes political views, sometimes social views. But all of these have now come together in a way that we're all going to have to manage that. And with the geopolitical issues going on in the world, it's only going to get more complicated versus simpler. So one of the skills on this flexibility is flexibility in thinking, flexibility in opinion, and flexibility of thought, as well as flexible work. The other point, and when I was doing my opening remarks, over the years I've turned into kind of an eager amateur neuroscientist. We spend a lot of time with neuroscientists now, as well as psychologists and sociologists and anthropologists, and I'm on a University of Washington board for brain science, the Garvey Institute, because the work that we did internally is based on hard science around human behavior, and we studied that. And one of the studies we did was around human connection. And in the brain, when humans feel connected or included with people, that registers as one of the most positive responses that the brain can have. And you do this using MRIs, actually, so we can measure all the electrical activity in the brain. But finding ways in your work, in your home, and in society to increase connectivity is going to turn into a paramount important thing for all of us, to find ways for people to feel connected, and that's why they want to go back to the office. Now, there's another statistic I'll give you around focus time, but what we're learning on humans, and we have this analysis on strong ties versus weak ties, the more strong ties a person has, the more apt they are to be engaged in their work. So as employers thinking about bringing people together and really thinking about them as the whole human and increasing that connection with their employees is critical. And I'll tell you, during the pandemic, we asked our managers to do something that we had never asked them to do before, and that is check in with your employees every single week. Everyone on your team. So we have 22,000 people managers. That means we have 22,000, I call them homeroom teams. But what's interesting is most of those teams had been co-located, working together. Now everyone was virtual, and it was really a challenge, I'm sure, for all of you as it was for us. And so increasing connectivity turned to be a game changer for us. So what does this mean for Montana? Well, my thought is what I was saying earlier. One, think through how you want your workforce to be engaged. When you have an engaged workforce, and most statistics would say about half of workers are not engaged in their day-to-day work, unfortunately. But by increasing connectivity, finding them flexible ways to work will be, we think, a game changer for everybody. So that's point number one. Point number two is the importance of connectivity being something that Montana pulls off. And this is a bit controversial, so where's some of the people I was talking to last night? One of the things in Montana, we ran the statistics. So the FCC says that 1 in 3 Montanans don't have access to broadband. In the rural areas, it's 3 out of 5. And we're not saying it has to be broadband. It can be fiber, it can be copper. But the point is that for people to participate in the new economy, for businesses to be successful across borders, we really do have to get after this connectivity issue. Because people connection is also physical connection in terms of communications, workflows, and all of that. So we're at Microsoft very supportive of Governor Gianforte's and the legislature's efforts around figuring out this digital divide in Montana and thinking about the various programs they have to increase this connectivity. We'll talk more about that in the Q&A too, I'm sure. Point number 2. We think that culture and purpose are more important than ever. So Satya Nadella is our culture CEO. Bill was our technology CEO, and Steve was our business CEO. Satya bet the company that if he changed the culture, and you're talking to somebody who was at the company when the stock price was $28 for like a decade, okay? He bet the company that it wasn't just the technology strategy and business strategy that needed to change. What really had to change was our culture. Microsoft was a very competitive place. We did not play well with others. We were making a lot of bad technology bets. But in the end, this culture transformation and business transformation we've been on for the last 7 years is obviously working somewhat. And we're not here to brag about it as much as just to say, focusing in your businesses on culture, and now let me talk about purpose. Purpose shows up in a number of forms. For more later in career, mid-career people, they understand the point of purpose. Some people call it passion. With our early in career talent, we refer to it as, what are your superpowers? Because they're a little far away from a purpose or passion conversation, but we say, let's play to your superpowers. And having that purpose in your life, and what we've asked our employees to do is to say, what is it you want to accomplish with your purpose, your passion, to help Microsoft achieve its purpose, which is our mission? And if we can get the employees to bind their purpose, their passions with the company's mission, so they come to work and bring their A game every day to work because they feel they're doing something that's important and meaningful, and it allows the company to be successful. This has been one of the biggest unlocks that we have had. It also means a lot of people switch jobs because they found the job that they had didn't really serve their passion, but that's fine. But for employers in Montana, think about having a conversation around what is the vision of your organization, what is the purpose of your organization, and then ask the employees how they can take their purpose, their passion, and tie to that so that everybody wins. A couple other points on culture. You can't really do most work, as I said, without working with other people. And so what we found with our culture change efforts is we had to ask people to change their mindsets. So there's a book we recommend to everybody by Carol DeWitt. I love Carol, she's about this big. She's a university professor, and she doesn't like to give public talks, but she'll do it on occasion, but she's a dead serious researcher, and her book was called Mindset. Satya's wife gave him the book and said, I think what you believe is actually encapsulated in this book. So if you haven't read Mindset, please do. What it goes through is the importance of understanding fixed and open or growth mindset. You get to use both, and I like to say if you are laying on the operating table and the surgeon looks down at you and says, I am going to try something completely new today, that is likely not what you want at that moment. So fixed mindset is perfectly fine some of the time, but it's the ability to catch yourself having a fixed mindset and then move into growth or open mindset and being open to new ideas, new ways of working. All right, let me move on to my next point. Hang on 1 sec, sorry. We, as part of our culture effort, did 2 other things I wanted to share with you. If you look at, let me talk about leadership for a second, leadership and people management. If you look at these leadership models, there's 16 things you need to do as a leader. There's 24 little bullets underneath each of those 16 things. And I look at those models and I say, well, I suck at about half of that, so I'm never going to be a very good leader. People managers get the same thing. We just drown them in information about how do you need to manage, how do you need to lead. We changed our entire approach based on the neuroscience and started using the rule of threes. So instead of completely defining everything that, say, a leader needs to do, we defined what are the three most important things a leader needs to do to be successful and drive the company forward. Again, with lots of study with the neuroscientists and psychologists. And we came up with three simple concepts. Leaders in this next industrial revolution need to do, first, create clarity. Number 2 is to generate energy. And number 3 is to deliver success. Now, we believe every employee at the company can be a leader. You do not need to be a people manager or an executive to be a leader. Here's why. I had them do a study, and it's easy to do because we use Teams. So I said, I got 22,000 people managers, but how many teams are out there? Over 600,000 current active project teams operating in the company. Most of those project teams are not led by a people manager. They're led by an individual contributor, but that in and of itself is leadership. And that's why we said it was so important for everyone to feel that they were a leader and they could come to Microsoft to learn how to be a leader doing those three simple things. And then quickly we did the same thing with managers. We asked our managers to do three things: to model, coach, and care. Number one thing is to model the culture we want, the values we want, the productivity we want, the way we work. Number 2 is coach. Because it isn't always about training. Sometimes the most important thing is the in-the-moment coaching you can provide your employees or someone you're working with that will make the most difference. And then the last one, and never in my wildest dreams did I think Microsoft would have a word like this in one of our models, we asked our people managers to care. To care about their employees both as professionals but also as a full human. And this is the idea that humanity is coming into the workplace. So we asked them, again, either create clarity, generate energy, deliver success, or model, coach, and care, and it has worked really well for us. All right, point 3. Focusing on skilling, and I think this is what they really wanted me to hit on hard today, which is, if you go back to the ranch example and using, the tools that you need to do and learning and getting better all the time at what you're doing, there's a statistic from the World Economic Forum. So these are the people that put on Davos, if you're wondering who those folks are. So they do very broad worldwide studies. Their belief is half of active workforce, half of active employees will have to be retrained by 2025. 3 years. That the skills gap is getting so large, and it's not just on technology, it's also on the soft skills that is so important. And remember, the beauty of learning, if you get it away from the word training, is it doesn't have to be a class. On-the-job learning is some of the best way to train people, but that means you got to be coaching them along the way and providing those examples, and or something we call learning in the flow of work. I'm not going to do many plugs for our technology, but we're coming up with a learning platform that as you're trying to do something, the AI senses that, and it'll immediately start giving you suggestions on how you could do it better. So if you see you're going to have a one-on-one with one of your employees who's been underperforming, it'll pop up a 10-minute little video that says how to have a performance management conversation that's effective and doesn't trigger the employee in the wrong way. That's called learning in the flow of work, and there's going to be a lot more of that coming. But access to training is a problem, as we all know. Ironically, I was going to save this for later, but I'll just throw it in right now. We're offering about 225,000 cybersecurity classes for free out to the nation's community colleges. Because we believe most small businesses are not ready for how threatening the actual environment is going to be out there, and so we want to get a lot more people trained in cybersecurity. And here's the Montana tie. Believe it or not, we have like an engineering leader, sales leader. We always have a policy leader. The policy leader for cybersecurity from Microsoft used to be an attorney. We all move around, do different jobs. He grew up in Missoula. And so one of the things I want to do is get Tom Burt out here at some point to also come talk about how important cybersecurity and skilling on cybersecurity is going to be. And then for all of you who have businesses, we have a free learning platform called MS Learn that allows your employees to go learn digital skills for free. 46% of employees that were surveyed in this very large global study, 46%, which is funny because the number's tied, do not believe that they have the skills necessary to be successful moving forward. And what they're worried about, these are the frontline workers, what they're worried about is losing their job because they can't keep up with technology change. And so I think there is a bit of a moral imperative to be providing more services, more training to the people that work for us to be successful, in this new digital age. The other thing, just to bring it down, you also don't need to be a developer anymore to develop software. We developed a thing called Power Apps that allows, we call it citizen developers, and who's doing most of it are people who are doing repetitive work. They found that they can just code themselves up a little Power App that will make that manual work now electronic, get rid of paper or get rid of checklists. So if you haven't looked at that and you're in a business that deals with physical work and or logistics, et cetera, take a peek. And then also it's a great way to greatly reduce record costs. The other thing, though, that is important is to allow everyone to participate who maybe doesn't have the opportunity to go to community college, to a university, et cetera. So we started a apprenticeship program at the company because we believe everyone should have a fair shot at getting a great job. This apprenticeship program, once they graduate, they become a certified apprentice, and it's the first apprenticeship program in the United States that's been certified by the U.S. Department of Labor. What that means, though, is they now have economic value from that certification because they can say, I'm a certified Power App developer, I'm a certified web developer. And that's portable with them. So we don't care if they come to work for us. What we're trying to do is to provide opportunity because one great paying job for a family can be a game changer. We just started 2 more of these programs, one in Kenya and one in Nigeria, all female classes for now. And we have so far 100% graduation rate. So this idea of skilling of our workforce, we will rely on the education system, the colleges and K12 obviously to get everyone ready, but we also are going to have to find ways that apprenticeships can become more of a way to provide economic opportunity to everyone. The last one on this point is, and I'm talking to a number of the education leaders here in the state today, is we do have to continue to pivot the education system towards skilling and making sure, I'm a liberal arts major, so I was poli-sci econ, so I get it. I mean, I'm a proud University of Montana Grizz. I was very proud of the Cats. I'm sorry they didn't win, but they represented Montana well. That said, go Grizz. And my family's over there, a bunch of them are Bobcats, it's terrible. But I think the education system is gonna have to get real that employability equals empowerment. And the more we can provide both hard and soft skill training to students while they're still in school is gonna be super critical. So then the last one is that technology is gonna permeate everything. Regardless of what your business is, we met a new guy, Mike over here from Billings, who spoke yesterday, spent some time with him last night. Whether it's trucking, whether it's ag, whatever, technology is gonna permeate just everything you do, so your company is now a tech company. And thinking through that, because once we come out of this pandemic, the digital age is really gonna kick into high gear again. But I think Montana in particular is gonna be pretty well suited to go after this. So I'm pretty positive about it. And I'm gonna share a video, it's a little long, it's about 4 minutes, because I just wanna show you how technology is going to start using in some of the traditional industries, including this one is about ag. But a quick funny story, when you're a vice president of the company, you have to be a sponsor to one of our global accounts. And so I was thinking of, a great sounding place with great tasting beer, like maybe Heineken in Amsterdam. I'll be the Heineken rep. That sounds great. I was given John Deere, headquartered in Moline, Illinois. I have come to know the John Deere people very, very well. They are hardworking, serious. Obviously, they are critical part of the global food supply chain. And they're a great partner to us. But if we can roll the video, you'll see somewhere where technology is coming into more traditional industries.
The world has a food problem, but it is not just about growing food. We need to grow good food, nutritious food, and we need to grow that food without harming the planet. Agriculture is both a contributor to climate change. It will be affected by climate change, and it could also be a solution to climate change. One of the most promising ways to address that problem is that of data-driven agriculture. That is, if you could capture data from the farm, from different parts of the farm, and then use artificial intelligence on top of that data to add value, to be able to predict things that you otherwise cannot sense, cannot measure, you can then use that to improve efficiencies in agriculture.
My name's Andrew Nelson. I'm a fifth-generation farmer in Eastern Washington. We farm about 8,000 acres. We live here with my family. I have 2 little boys, and my wife works in a town nearby. I'm also an active software engineer, so I like to combine my passions of software and agriculture. So I do a lot of precision ag on our farm. This year we had the second driest year on record. Last year we had one of the wettest years on record. So we're continually facing different challenges on our farm, and that's where I like to utilize technology to help me overcome those challenges as best as I can.
As we researchers in Microsoft Research build new technology, we give it to Andrew to try it out in his farm. Andrew tries it out, adds his agricultural knowledge to see how that could make this technology even more powerful.
So one of the biggest challenges with deploying IoT systems in remote locations is the lack of connectivity. So even if you go out and deploy sensors in a farm field, you need a way to get all that data to the cloud. We're able to bridge that gap by using TV white spaces. TV white spaces are unused TV spectrum, and they're really great when it comes to the agriculture scenario because they can travel very long distances. So what we've done as part of the FarmBeats project is create this end-to-end IoT system that actually uses TV white spaces to both enable connectivity and also send sensor data to the cloud.
In order to enable precision agriculture, a farmer needs to know what the farm looks like. Not just what's above the soil, also what's below the soil. One way to create that view is if you can bring data from sensors, if you can bring data from satellite imagery, from drone imagery, using artificial intelligence and computer vision techniques, you can merge all of these different data streams to create views of the farm that you otherwise just couldn't get.
With one drone flight, we can generate 15 to 20 gigabytes worth of data. And we're able to see the data that comes back immediately. I'm starting to have self-reinforcing loops. I can take a drone flight, it'll inform my spray decision, which I can then see results from my weather station in the field. And I can manage my field in a much more granular approach. I'm going from managing things field by field to managing it acre by acre or even in smaller increments. It's saving a lot in time, it's saving a lot in cost, and I think it's helping us control any issues we have on our farm to a better degree.
These use cases can be applicable across multiple industries. For example, the oil and gas industry, some of the TV whitespace solutions could help solve their problem. The supply chain industry and the wind and solar energy producers would love to know, what the solar predictions or the wind predictions would be, where some of the microclimate predictions could sort of help them solve that problem.
these are all fundamental computer science challenges where we as computer scientists need to work together with the other scientists in the space. So technology can help with climate adaptation. And technology can also help with agriculture becoming a solution to this problem. We are confident using some of the technologies that we are building that we will be able to overcome this challenge.
So just a glimpse into how technology is permeating something pretty heavily. That project actually started in India. And the reason it began, it was in countries where there is very little water and very low availability to things like pesticides and fertilizer. And so there, every penny super counts. And then we started applying it in the US, and we're seeing some really great results. But just an example of how every industry is probably, we think, going to become a tech company. So you all get to call yourselves tech employees soon enough, and tech leaders. All right, so everything we know about work is changing. Flexibility, the importance of using flexibility in terms of how you are allowing your employees to work. We found too, it isn't just location, it's work hours that has made the bigger difference. Just a little bit of give on start and stop times or time in the middle of the day can make a big difference to people. Location is key. We've proven that you can work from home. Education, we got to figure out a little bit more how that's going to work. But flexibility is key. This point around purpose and culture and getting your employees clear about what their passion is and how they can apply that passion to their job. I think that skills is the new currency. And one statistic that will be interesting, it shouldn't be disturbing, but about 40% now of JDs are no longer requiring a college degree for higher end work. What we're seeing is a shift, and this is using LinkedIn data. The last deal I did actually in M&A was LinkedIn, and then I went and did this job. Just in 1 year, 21% of the job postings out on LinkedIn have shifted away from requirements like a degree to just here are the skills that you need to do the job, and if you have those skills, you're qualified. So the other tip for business owners and everyone is get really clear about what the skills are in your particular business, and then do a quick little analysis, a gap analysis on where do you need to increase those skills or retrain that 46% of your workers who are worried that they're not going to be able to have skills that are going to be successful for them in the future. So lastly, I think Montana, I'm here a lot. I'm actually a season ticket holder at football, so I fly over regularly or drive over. I'm on a couple of boards here. I'm in Helena a bunch, seeing my family and doing some work here. So I love being back, but I am very bullish on Montana and where the current administration, the legislature is going, as well as where the education system and the chamber is trying to drive the state. I think Montana is positioned to be an exemplar of how you can be a rural state, but also be on the cutting edge of technology and using technology to drive success. And I think in the end, what we all want is for more people to move here and open businesses. And this flexibility point, they don't need to have their headquarters here. We just need to have offices here or plants here or service centers here. And how do we attract that talent to come back to Montana or open up in Montana is going to be key. I'm also, I should have mentioned, a proud Montana ambassador. I'm one of the founding members of the Seattle chapter. And so we do a lot of work trying to get people to move back to Montana over there as well. But I think that this point around working together and being collaborative will really allow a lot of success and make sure that Montana continues to be the last best place on earth. Thank you very much. And I think Ron's going to come up now, and we're going to have a chat.
Joe, I just want to start and say, you're really kind of a inspiration, a Montana inspiration. I mean, for someone to go to a lower tier higher education school as opposed to a higher one like Miles Community College and being successful as you are I realize that probably is the reason why you're at this startup, internet company. I just want to let you know that if the startup fails at all, 18 months ago, we at Miles Community College, we started a meat processing certificate program. And, with your ranching background, I would suggest that you look into that. So, It's great to have you here. It's an absolute honor to be here with you. And let me kick this off. So as head of talent management at Microsoft, can you talk a bit about your approach to hiring? What role do boot camps, certificates, and other forms of skilling inform your hiring decisions?
Yeah, I think just building on what I said earlier, we are moving very rapidly to just a skills economy, and having the ability to say, what are the exact skills? We're changed even to job descriptions. Now we want them just to write out, here are the 6 to 8 core skills you need versus what's your background been. Experience is interesting, but more around just skills. Number 2 is we have really opened up the aperture. We used to just go to the top universities globally. We now are going to more community colleges, hundreds of them across the globe, to find talent, because we're finding, sure, if you are really going to be a commercial grade software developer, you usually will have a software degree or a physics degree or one of those. But for most of our other jobs, we don't care. And so that's really helped us, get more people in the door and retain people, including we started up an autistic hiring program. We have a very large number of people with autism now working at the company because we've learned that they are incredibly intelligent and talented, and we just have to get our people managers to understand how to manage them slightly differently.
Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic. And I appreciate the investment Microsoft's doing in community colleges with cyber. I think it really does, though. It does scare me as far as the numbers you were throwing out as far as the lack of broadband access and things. So it's just something we need to continuously try and improve upon. So you've talked a lot about the importance of learning and skilling. How are you thinking about cultivating the continuous learning culture at Microsoft itself?
Yeah, so we are doing a study right now on how many days should we mandate for learning in the company. So we used to practice just figure it out or fail. We've become kinder, gentler in our old age here. But at a minimum, we're thinking it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks of just learning time. And that doesn't necessarily mean in the classroom. That can also be through mentoring. That can be through job shadowing someone else. It can be through all the various ways, including formal learning. And then we do things called hackathons where they get cross-functional teams together to go work on whatever their particular issue is. I'll give you the example is some of the advances for visually impaired people in our projects and our products did not come out of the commercial engineering team. It actually came out of these hackathon teams that said we can do a better job for colorblind people, low vision people, people with macular degeneration, and then they turn that over to the engineering teams to imbue into our code.
So we heard the Secretary of State talk about, I believe, 51,000 new businesses started, which might be where all those employees that we're looking for are. They started their own companies. Montana's creating more jobs than we have talent to fill.
Right.
So as someone who knows Montana and knows how to attract talent, what should we be doing to bring new workers into the state?
Yeah, I was talking with the governor, and he has this new program, to attract new businesses back to Montana. I think it's a winner. And I think going at it where you can do loans, you can also, provide support from the government for these companies to open. And you look at companies that have moved, like Sage, moved its headquarters here. The brothers that brought the titanium refinery, the titanium foundry back to Butte. There's some really interesting people moving back, but I think the key thing is going to be more things like the Montana ambassadors and all of you going out of state and reconnecting with the people that moved away. And then simple little things like perks. The perks of if you passed your hunter safety back when you were a kid, you get to apply for Montana hunting licenses as a resident. And so, there's programs where everybody being smart about how do we create opportunities for people to come back. It doesn't just have to be about employability. It can be lots of different things. The other thing that I would say is do use the platforms, whether it's Indeed, whether it's LinkedIn, to get your jobs out there. And you yourself, I'm not trying to sell you the product as much as just to say, if you're a leader in this state, you really should have a LinkedIn profile because that's how people are going to find you. But it's also how they're going to check you out to see if they want to come work at your company. And then making sure your company has a good presence as well, because that's how people are finding work and jobs now.
So I was blown away by your stat that you put up, the 76% of employees wanted flexibility.
Yep.
Right, which leads perfectly to the next question, which is increasingly our workforce is comprised of Generation Zers, okay, with they just have a very different set of priorities and expectations of workplace norms. So how do you approach managing that new generation of workers?
Yeah, so first I'll just give you my personal opinion. This is one of the things I'm loving is the Zs are fighting with the millennials because they think the millennials talk and don't do a lot. The millennials are fighting with the boomers, and nobody cares about the Xers. So it's just, if you're an Xer, it's a beautiful place to be because they're just in this little divot and they're all fighting with each other and not us. But I think we thought the millennials weren't going to work, and it's actually quite the opposite. They work very hard, they just work differently, and this was the change in the start of how it's a new day. The employees really do have the power right now, and especially we're finding with trying to fill jobs, the ability to get people to come to work for you is you're going to have to get clear that the contract for work is changing, and that's not going to change back, we don't think. The pandemic accelerated it. It was probably going to happen anyways, but how the millennials and how the Zs want to spend their time, and quite frankly, most of the Xers, is very different than the traditional 9-to-5 job and coming into the office every day. But also, they do want to have purpose and meaning. And the number one thing that we can tell you about the Zs is they are very interested in meaning. And they are very concerned about all of the issues without going through them, how those are going to get solved by for-profit business and nonprofit business. And again, it starts with the most important thing is having a conversation with people. What turns you on, what keeps you engaged, how can we make our work a great place to work for you in a very flexible way.
Thank you, appreciate that. I think now we'll open up the questions from the audience. There's some microphones. If you could raise your hand, we'll come to you. We have one by Liz in the back.
Anybody but Liz.
Anyone but Liz. Okay, Liz, sorry, we will not take Liz's question. Anyone else? It's on now.
So I was an early tech adopter, and I am struggling with a I'm calling it my encore career. I work with brilliant technologists. I'm always the only person at the office because I need that. That was my habit, but I'm a workaholic anyway. I've always been a lifelong learner. But talk a little bit about there are a lot of skills that I came here from a paperless office, and I almost cry every day at the technology I have to work with. I mean, it's unbelievable. But I feel like I have soft skills to bring to the future. But talk a little bit about aging workforce and then childcare. I have 4 daughters who are struggling more than I did with childcare as professionals.
So let me do the second one first, and I'll do the first one. We do parse the data on working parents, but then also people who say maybe have aging parents or someone who is chronically ill at home, and looking at where there's significant stress in the home, and they're trying to balance their work life there. And then it is females, and the statistic that is not good is it ranges between 28 and then up to believe it or not, up into the high 30s of many working women are not going to come back. And they're going to arrange their life and rearrange their priorities in a way that unless they can get flexibility, they're not coming back. Because when we ask the second question. And so we feel this flexible work approach is going to be critical so people can feel successful at home as well as successful at work. But it is going to mean they're not going to be in the office as much. But there's a particular thing we do need to solve, which is just broaden it to working parents, because there's also a lot of dads now that are stay-at-home dads as well. And that whole conundrum, technology is going to be helpful because of the connectivity and the ability to work from anywhere and work from any place, but that's not going to be the total solve. It's going to be more workforce policies and how we manage these people is going to be critical. And then for the aging workforce, the fail for the software companies is we need to continue to make it easier to use technology. So whether it's us, whether it's Apple, whether it's the Oracle, Google, we need to do a better job to make it easier to use the software. And that is coming, and with natural language processing in particular will be helpful. And then the AI is going to really unlock things because it's going to basically understand what you're trying to do and help you get it done. So help is on the way. It's just it is complicated.
Well, I will say at Miles Community College and our executive team that report to me, two of my executive team members, which are both just outstanding, are young mothers and childcare. And I'm just starting my third year as president there. And the very first year, it's always trying to figure out what my expectations are. And so they would walk in constantly apologizing because they had to go pick up a kid or they had to go over. And I always told them, which makes me feel better after hearing what you said, family first. When I need you, I expect you to be there, but family first. Go take your kids. If things aren't right at home, if things aren't right in your personal life, they're not going to be right here, and I need you. I need you to be right. So I really appreciate your approach as far as connectivity and getting involved and really engaging. I mean, it means the world. They would run through a wall for me right now, I believe, because they know that I have their back, and I have no expectation whatsoever at 3:30 on Wednesday when they have to pick up the kid.
That's great. That's great.
Other questions?
Good afternoon. My name is Ben. I run a healthcare disaster response organization, which there's not much going on in that world.
That's kind of an oxymoron. Healthcare disaster.
Yeah, we're healthcare disaster response. Sure. I also, I'm also an elder millennial. We're aging now. Sort of sucks.
It happens.
And we are absolutely caught between Z and X and trying to figure it out, which means that on our day-to-day, we're either explaining how to use Google Drive or having somebody write code for us so we can get our API to work. Right. My question is, as an organization, our company has grown pretty substantially. What we're seeing, though, is there seems to be a explosion in the world of consultants and consultants who consult for consultants who do consulting, who are doing some consulting work. And one of the things that we're looking at in the company of the future is the company of the future going to be one or two people or a small team that is essentially surrounded by an ecosystem of what we would maybe call subcontractors or consultants? As people are starting to stretch their wings, we've seen some of our workforce start to leave our organization, which is painful, and we're supporting them starting their own ventures, and then they turn around and try to sell their services back to us, exactly. Which is ironic because we trained them to do those services, and it's painful, and yeah, running a business sucks. I would never do it again. But I'm really curious to see if in the future, from your perspective, from both of you, both healthcare and from Microsoft's perspective, is that what it's going to look like? And what are the stats, if you know them, on the workforce that's actually leaving what we would consider the workforce, but they're actually just starting their own businesses,
right? And
they're turning into these 1 or 2 person shops.
Right.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I think, so we face the same thing. Half of our workforce is, we use a different term, external staff. So regardless of the nature of it, whether they're a vendor, a consultant, an hourly pay person, we just call it all external staff. The number one thing that we controlled for first, though, was you are only allowed to work with us in that capacity for 18 months, and then you have to do a break in service. And the reason was we would have these people that were with us for longer, we would train them, they would have all of our IP and then walk out the door or go sell it to some other company. And so I do think this concept of who are your franchise players in your company that you just absolutely have to have. So I also run executive succession planning for the company. So who's going to run the place in 10 years? And we get really clear on who are our, we call them corporate athletes or, our stellar performers, or they are thought leaders. Because in technology, literally there are some people, say in quantum, where there are only maybe 12 of them in the world. And so we want to make sure we're really clear, like who are the people we absolutely want to have as full-time employees and incent them to stay full-time employees versus walking out the door. Number two is we're all just going to have to get used to the fact that we're going to have a very different mix of people working in our companies now. And I think we have a chart. I think we came up with 12 different types already of vendors that work with us. And I think that's this flexibility point, that's just going to be a new norm of, and it's not even staffing agencies, you're right. It's these onesie, twosie firms. The good news is that that should also, though, help with some of our diversity issues in some of these larger companies, quite frankly, because they do that consulting gig because then a lot of times they work 3 months and take 3 months off. It's a nice deal if you can get it. So my only advice is just more embrace it and think through, but protect your IP and make sure you got the people you need really well locked into your company.
Other questions?
Yes, I want to combine something that you said about 85% of Zers want flexibility with their time. I'm trying to merge that with what Senator Blasdell said about his catering business, book something a year in advance. He has to wonder if people are going to want to go camping on a certain weekend and he can't fulfill the job. You mentioned about Mike Wilson. The people you were talking about, the Zers, whatever, and you talked about the way business is done. Are those people going to be able to be relied upon to work for Mike, to be on the road for a week eating junk food? What does that portend for the way business has happened? The business that needs to be done, the tedious day in and day out working stuff, not the, like Microsoft, the intellectual stuff. By the way, I also wanted to mention that I'm sure it's pure coincidence that on your video there were no Apple computers on there. But thank you.
That's so funny. So point one is we always think the upcoming generation isn't going to work. And it's because, they are very busy with their social lives, right? And so you got to remember their priorities really are outside of work most of the time. They're trying to get their personal lives figured out. They're trying to figure out money, and they're trying to figure out dating and all of that. But then as we've seen even with the millennials, they've turned into a good, hardworking group of people. And the belief is the Zs will do the same thing, right, over time. Number two, though, is you are bringing up the point that has us all worried, which is how dependable is the future workforce going to be on far out dates? And the example we use is project-based work is going to become probably more common. And the easiest metaphor to think about project-based work is a movie. When people sign up to do a movie, they know they are going to have to do the entire movie until it's done with the shooting, and then they're going to get released from that show. So there's a clear start and end to the work. And people really love project-based work like that. The more we can create projects so that people are clear about that and bid on that, that's great. But then the fact of the no-shows, what will happen over time is the people that no-show are going to get bad ratings, and people will know that and not hire them. So in the short term, it'll be maybe a little painful, but I think just normal labor markets will prevail on things like that. And funny, I was thinking about fly fishing guides. How many times have you talked to a fly fishing guide and they were an electrician, a firefighter, a nurse, some other thing, and now they're a fly fishing guide? Why? Because they wanted flexibility. And they run their own show. And so I just think it's a great metaphor for Montana of we can't have everybody being a fly fishing guide. At the same time, we need to figure out how do we lock in our employees, to your point, to come do that work. And I'll keep selling this point on meaning. Explain to them how interesting the work is, why the importance of the work, and we believe people will engage on it.
I believe we have time for one more question.
Hi, I'm Christina Henderson, Executive Director of the Montana High Tech Business Alliance and member of the Chamber Board. And we're proud to partner with the Chamber and others in Montana to work to fill the gap in knowledge in Montana. We have we're familiarity with ranching and farming and tourism and other traditional industries and working to familiarize folks with the types of jobs available, the companies that want to hire them. I hope everybody in here has gotten to see the videos of flying drones in Rapplej and the Youth Entrepreneurs Program. But I'm curious what K12 education initiatives Microsoft might have that are helping to raise up that next generation in technology.
Yeah, so this is an important one because we think the first part of this has to be increasing the training for the teachers. And so the more we can provide for free, great technology training to those who are teaching, whether it's K through 12 or even at the university level, all the better. Because it's hard to keep current. And so, that's issue number one. Issue number two is we need to do a better job of getting the technology, because we figured out you can't do, and so now the psychology studies are coming out, this virtual school every day, all day doesn't work. Now, hybrid, and the last term I'll leave you all with is everything we're doing in the company now, how we run the company and how we're building our products, we're referring to it as hybrid by design. Because we think from now on there is going to be this mix of in-person and virtual all the time to allow people to stay home and take care of the kids, but also participate in work and have a full-time job. And so in K through 12, we have a big commitment on educating the teachers, but also, we're all trying to find cheaper ways to get hardware for students that's durable, so that everybody can also get connected. But it goes back to this connectivity issue too, because it's hard to do schoolwork if you don't have a fat pipe to get, your homework uploaded. And it's a complicated one because it's so endemic everywhere, but this is a global issue. We have this exact same conversation in India and many other countries around how can we help primary education be more successful with technology. And I loved what the university system, or that actually was K through 12 here in the state did, where they're allowing like computer science classes to now count as like math credits, and it should. And so I think that little things like that can go a long way.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Please give Joe a round of applause. Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. Courtney? Sure.
Sounds great. Thanks again, Joe. Thank you, Ron, for the time today. I'm going to steal that word hackathon and maybe introduce some hackathons into our office. I really appreciate the conversation and hearing from the crowd, too, on some of the challenges that we're having relating to engagement, flexibility, and maintaining our workforce. So thank you very much. As you can see, the hotel staff is putting out our salads. So we've got just about a 5-minute stretch break while they go around and lay out your salads, and then Todd will join us back on the stage in just a few minutes. So grab another drink if you need it, but don't go too far. The governor's in the room, so we're excited to hear from him next. Thank you.